Cartier City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
So after Kelvin's talk, Neng is here from the insurance company, the insurance centre, and he's going to give a brief 5-minute talk about COVID insurance. And I have heard a rumour that if you're on an O visa, not an OA visa, you need really proper insurance on an OA visa. I've heard a rumour, it's been told to me, that if you're on an O visa, you're going to need to show COVID insurance when you renew your visa. That's what I've been told, still to be confirmed. Daryl has yet to confirm it, so. But anyway, there's going to be a 5-minute talk on COVID insurance from Neng. After our main speaker, Kelvin, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. We have had technical hiccups and stuff, so we apologise for that, Kelvin. But meanwhile, Kelvin, of course, is this, this is your 3rd or 4th talk? 4th talk at the club, so really a regular speaker and very much appreciated. So a big round of applause for our initial reboot speaker, Kelvin, on Planndemic. Is there a case for the conspiracy theorists?
Thank you, Miss Dr. Wren. It's good that not so many turned up, so you won't attack me all at once. Yeah? Alright, so we've had some technical difficulties, of course. I had a couple of videos to show you. There's a lot to cover, and I'm not going to turn around and look at the screen all the time. I'm going to come down there sometimes because it's not very good here for giving a speech or a talk. First things first. Vodka. Now, this is our... okay, let's see if this works. Right. Now, a Planndemic, or crime of the century, or a cock-up, as the English say, or a political opportunity. I hope this presentation will cover most of those, but perspective is very important, how you're looking at this. We may never know what happened, because a lot is going to happen, and a lot has happened. So we have a few thoughts here. This is my disclaimer. This is me talking. It's got nothing to do with Thai 888 or medical profession or legal advice or anything. This is just me. So if you're going to sue someone, it'll be me, not anyone else. So it's not legal advice or any advice. This is a talk at the club between club members. Now, a little bit hard to see down there. There's a saying from a long time ago, it's attributed to the Rothschilds maybe. Give me control of the nation's money and I care not who makes its laws. So we cover a little bit of law later on, and you'll see what's being slipped in while COVID is happening over here. There's a lot of laws being changed. I'm just going to do this very quickly because I timed my talk and it's just going over. Let's go back on that. Wow, what's happened there? There's nothing even in there. I did check all this with Brad and a few other people, but there's nothing there. Let's see what we do have. Masks versus no mask, lockdown versus no lockdown. We seem to be stuck in that mode at the moment. But I feel absolutely certain that the second wave, I call it, is going to be a financial wave, and the third wave will be a mental health issue. So in those last 2 columns there, you'll see how they'll dwarf whatever else is happening. Now, we've been through these viruses before, so let's have an overview. We've got bird flu, swine flu, dog flu, horse flu, tiger flu, human flu, malaria, dengue. Then we had the AIDS pandemic in 1987. Who remembers that? That was one of the first, except for during the atomic explosions and things in America where it was duck and cover. underneath the table. So I have a video here, but I'm not sure I can play it. Do you think it'll work, John? Hang on. Then we had mad cow disease, swine flu, Zika virus and Ebola. So we live with viruses. And we live with the scare campaign too. Now, is that going to work, John, or not? This is what happened in Australia in 1987 when the AIDS pandemic started. It's not going to work, okay. So you can download this on the internet, it will work. There was a scare campaign in Australia, and there was no internet then, and you had to rely on newspapers and radios and things like that. Now, the scare campaign was the Grim Reaper, right, in a bowling alley, and a whole family down the end, nice white family, kids, all the rest of it. Grim Reaper, bowling them down. That was death. And so many people were going to die. It was just outrageous, this ad, but we believed it because we didn't have another form of news. Now, today's talk, we've got a few things here. I can't go through all this, but it's just a timeline since November when China found out about this. They found out about this 44 days before the rest of the world. Came from Wuhan in China. A few other things there. I just realised I didn't have my glasses on. So I've highlighted some of the things in red because we just don't have time to go through all this. In China, anyone that didn't report were spreading misleading information. They were ostracised in China. And then the scientists around the world came out and said, oh, don't worry, it's not as lethal as SARS, which we all went through as well. Then we come across nothing. Well, you really got to upgrade that computer. There's a whole bunch of things there. Oh, okay, slowly but surely. Okay, that's an important part there. As you'll see from a slide I'll put up, in the CDC means the Center for Disease Control in the US. They had these kits, so after the China thing happened, they had these kits that they were giving people to test for the virus. Now, those kits were all wrong. They've admitted that. So the early stage of this was around about February, March. Now there was a peak, as you'll see in the curve, of cases from these kits, but these kits were giving false positives. They later admitted that. The data was wrong, so March and April you saw this massive peak. In Wuhan they started to say that if you didn't report anyone that had a cold or a sniffle or an ache or a pain, that you would be nailed on the pillar of shame for eternity. This is communist China, don't forget. Now, what have we got? Next one. Gee, this is frustrating. Sorry, this was all checked, by the way, but Murphy's Law being what it is, nothing's coming out. Oh, John, what is going on? I'm clicking. Nothing's happening. Alright, so we've got one up. Now, the WHO, World Health Organization, CDC, Center for Disease Control, the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, governments, governors, mayors, did they have a political agenda here? This is what they were faced with. This was, this is actually a ramp for wheelie people, but you could see that the engineers were involved, politicians were involved, and this is what they came up with. This was to get people in wheelchairs down to the ground. So it was a complete and utter mess. The governments all around the world were struggling, and they kept asking their experts what to do. The media was picking up on all of this, and they were repeating everything all the time. No other news existed except COVID, and that, after 2 months, going into your mind changes the way you think. Now, most of the problems started here. The Imperial College study, they said that COVID would kill so many people. Now, Neil Ferguson is a mathematician. Well, he is a mathematician that did the modelling for this, okay? So you can have your questions later on. Now, he did the modelling for this, and he has a history of doing the modelling. Now, Dr. Fauci was the advisor to President Trump. Now, Fauci goes all the way back to the AIDS era. And each time there was a pandemic, you could see Fauci in the background, each time. Now, if you've got someone advising President Trump with figures that are rubbery, think back to April when the test kits weren't working properly, and this is the person who did all the modelling. Now, their track record has been really questionable. So in 2005, for example, Ferguson's model said that up to 200 million people could die. Now, in every pandemic, these models are being used, and they're still being used, and the data going into them is not correct. So when the New York Times asked in 2020 what the best case scenario was for the pandemic, he said 1.1 million deaths. Okay, they're nearly to that. They're at 1 million at the moment. However, in drilling down into the deaths, you have to ask yourself the question, what did they die from? Okay, what did they die from? Most of the cases died from what's called comorbidity, which is that you have another illness or several illnesses. Age factor, lifestyle, whether you drank alcohol or took drugs or whatever, all of those things have to come into it. So at Q&Q, qualitative and quantitative measures need to be taken to get the correct data, but that wasn't done. That data gets fed into the media. As a result of Neil probably on his 5th time of screwing up with the numbers in his modelling, he doesn't work for the Imperial College anymore. They said he went out, he broke curfew, and so they sacked him, but I think it's a little bit deeper than that, but I can't say too much. Okay. Now, the media has been the worst culprit in all of this. They've run off with numbers, done a whole bunch of things to sell newspapers and advertising, things like that. So if you base all your numbers on faulty tests and data, you can get the numbers you want. There's another video I had which was talking about how you can get data, you can get any result you want through data. Just the way you look at it, the way you number it, the way you label it. Now, there was a couple of techs from Silicon Valley that set up this online mapping tool, like the QR code we've got here in Thailand. Now, that's practically useless. So you're required to QR code in, and then on the outdoor you were required to QR code out, that little square box you saw at the supermarket and things like that. But no one was doing it. They were just walking past going, or faking it with their camera or this or that. So you've got this tool which is getting incorrect data and feeding it into the CDC and the WHO and the whole thing. So it's now been proved that it was wildly inaccurate. The numbers just aren't there to support it. Now, you remember that the hospitals were being inundated with lots of patients, right? Whether they had the sickness or not. People still went to the hospital for their regular medication, their treatments, all that sort of thing. Coughs, colds, kids flew over, all the rest of it. But in the US, the money had been allocated already. So the US House government, had special meetings to get some more money because no one knew where this thing was going, whether we were all going to die or not. So they had 4 different times where they paid money into the system. $3 trillion allocated for coronavirus. Hospitals were to receive $13,000 US per patient. $39,000 US for each ventilated patient. So to get funding, you had to prove these results. So if someone was 98 years old and had pneumonia and a kidney problem and diabetes and all the rest of it, on the coroner's report, they were putting COVID to get the dollars. This is a known fact now. This is not me making it up. Happened in Germany, Italy, all over the world. All the numbers were being cooked. So Italy, if you do the demographics there, it's all online. You can see the age group, where they lived, whether they smoked or not smoked, heart disease, all that sort of thing. But we can't get too involved in that. In New York, remember there was a big peak in New York. Well, 19 years prior to that, the 2 buildings came down and the dust plume there was phenomenal. The police, the emergency workers, everyone was getting lung disorders. This is now 19 years, and that's about how long it takes for cancers to start kicking in. So you've got to take all these things into perspective. Now, CNN and Fox, they get hold of these things, and of course, they want ratings, they want viewers. And so they're all trying to outdo each other with things that weren't proven. They even went and stole things off each other's network. Oh, that sounds good, let's put that on tonight's news. So left or right, it doesn't matter. They're all going up the same way. People start quoting unreal facts and figures because they got them from the media. They got them from social media and TV, radio, newspaper. They also got them from the mate down the pub or their group that, oh, I read this, boom, it was getting cut and paste in 2 seconds flat off onto Facebook or YouTube or something. Now, somewhere in amongst all this, you had a couple of groups pop up their head in America, mostly. Change.org was there to shut people down. A whole organisation to shut people down the way they think. Then you had Black Lives Matter. Have you been following Black Lives Matter? If anyone in this room can produce an address or a phone number for that organisation, I'll give you what's in my wallet. It's a front. You can prove it. Just get online and have a look. There is no phone number to that organisation. But billions of dollars are being poured into there for other reasons. It's not going to the black people. Check it. It's not just me talking. Then you got the Dems and the Republicans. There's an election coming up. So let's fine-tune this to see if we can sway this vote. November 3rd, I think it happens. Now, you had riots and destabilisation. That's still happening in America. Still. There's a few cities being torched. There's a couple of hundred protesters on the street. But there's millions of people in their homes scared to get out, scared to go down the shop, because they don't want to get attacked on the street. People drive in their car somewhere, they're getting their cars torched, right? You don't want that, so you stay at home. Governors and police commissions in these counties did nothing. They sat back. They're still sitting back. I hate to get into this, but this is the definition of Marxism. This is what happens. It's in the rule book. Do this, do this, do this. Now, panic and chaos ensues. That's what's happening. I'm not going to play that. This is how to play with data. If you want hospital A or hospital B and see which one you want to go to, it's a very good explanation. I'll put it up on the internet and you can click it and have a look later on. Now, all over the world things start happening. In the UK, you've got Dr. Bernard Coleman, written hundreds of books. He's called Old Man in the Chair. He just sits there and he says it as it is because he's got nothing to lose. Unfortunately, in England, they just locked everyone out of the health system, national health system. He's 70-something, the wife had cancer, needed treatment, and they were delivering food to the house, and the weather wasn't very good like here. So they were actually waiting to go to hospital for a cancer treatment and a whole bunch of things, and every month older people have to go to get tests for their bloods and things like that. That wasn't allowed to happen. Now when he rang the hospital, said, how can I get down there because I'm not allowed to travel? They said, how old are you? He said, 65. They said, don't come. Don't come. They shut old people out of the system. This is in England. You can check Coleman. He's a very interesting guy. Now, everyone had an opinion about this. World Health was saying one thing and the Mayor of London was saying another thing. And the World Health and the CDC were supposed to be the authorities to give us information. Yet you had mayors and police and anyone in authority making up their own rules, regardless of what they were being told to do. So everyone had an opinion. Experts were contradicting each other because a lot of the scientists and professors and things like that, they get their salary, if you like, paid for by groups to support them. So they don't want to write anything bad and lose their enticements, I suppose. Now in the media, they were searching for experts. They would go to small country towns and ask this hick doctor there, what's your opinion? And they'd put him on the news. And the media is easy to sway people. So they didn't want the momentum to go out of this COVID thing. So people being people, you get psychosomatic illnesses. You watch this stuff all the time and you think, oh, I've got a cold, I've got a sniffle, I've got an ache, I've got a pain. I should go and get it checked out. But in England they said, don't, just call this number, 111. There's 3-4 million people calling that number. It's not going to happen. You're stuck. Then people were freaking out saying, I'll go to hospital. Then they made these things, if you leave the house you will be fined, you'll be arrested, right? So people were stuck in their houses, sick, couldn't get their medications, anything. They couldn't go to their local GP because they weren't open. Only emergency services, which were the hospital, refusing treatment. So this is just a couple of numbers, right? 1,000 people have the flu, 1 dies. So the mortality rate is 0.1%. If another 9,000 people get sick, then the mortality rate is 0.01. So you see how it's going down. The more people you test, the less people die. Now in Thailand, the death rate for 59 people is 0.08%. 0.08%. Suicide in Thailand, 14.4% and rising. Cancer, 19%. Lung disorders, health disease, stroke, 10%. And we're worried about 0.08%. But stay with me, some numbers are interesting. But the media was relentless in what they were doing. And there was no perspective. No perspective meaning it's a big pie. People are dying, people are getting sick. But there's also the financial implications. There's also the illnesses, the mental illnesses that should be in this to gain a perspective on where it's all going. There was none. For months and months and months now we've been told COVID, 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 right? People are sick of it, they're numb from it. Now, in Thailand, you've got 66 deaths per day from motorbikes. Yet the total death toll from COVID in Thailand is 59 over the last 9 or 10 months. And that cost 500 billion. The cost of fixing COVID, it's off the map, off the map. Anyway, there's statistics. Then we get to a point where we have possible cures. The old hydroxychloroquine. The Rush University just this week said it's safe and effective, plus zinc, and they're both FDA approved. But try buying it. Try treating yourself. Ivermectin is from a doctor in Australia. He cured your peptic ulcer problem in the stomach with a radical cure. Him and his team won the Nobel Science Prize. Okay, so he has some credentials. Your immune system, vitamin D. Worldwide consensus now is it's safe. The latest study this week said it decreased deaths 50%. Yet when I put this on Facebook way back in February, March, I was blocked, I was banned because it was against their policy. We'll get onto that in a bit. Now, even in February 2020, 2 Thai doctors, front page of Bangkok Post, they found a cure. Right? There they are. They used them for MERS, for Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, and they worked. Again, all of this is FDA approved. For like 50 years some of them have been FDA approved. Everything was squashed. Everyone was discredited. Your mass media, your social media, all banned any possible cures or noting them or anything. Just shut down. Why? Nothing else was available. Everyone kept saying, oh, the vaccine's coming, vaccine's coming. We'll get onto that in a minute. But there was nothing available, so why couldn't people use these FDA approved drugs? There was nothing else to lose. You weren't going to die from taking them. Now, I had a clip there about RNA vaccines. You can't rush these vaccines because it's never been done before. RNA vaccines are a new thing. Just because someone sits there and gets his vaccine and says, oh, I feel fine, and 2 weeks later they feel fine and all the rest of it. With an RNA vaccine, you have to worry about what happens in the next generation, in the next year, when all these little things start popping up, because RNA is the stuff of life. That's before DNA. This is what's in DNA. When you start changing that around and genetically it evolves, you don't know where it's going to go. So you can't rush things like that. Normally they would take 10 years. Oh, here we go, back to Fauci. Fauci never mentioned this once. He's the advisor to Trump. Never mentioned this once, that he was taking vitamin D. but someone found this email and he answers, yes, I'm on 6,000 international units per day. They've now found that it does work. You got a great success rate. From the 0.00067% chance of dying, cut that in half again. If you take vitamin D, you should be okay. But anyway, that's not medical advice, that's just what's out there. Yes, underlying illnesses. This is a list of things which you can get, which people have, and then when they do the autopsy or they go to hospital, this is some of the things they find. You've got HIV there, all the way down, diabetes, cancers, all that sort of thing. Now, COVID comes in about number 56 on things that could possibly kill you. Here's the graph from our world data, which shows in March, April, a big peak. That's the time I told you that the test kits were faulty. They were showing false positives. The guy who invented the test kits said, these test kits were never designed to do that. What they did, they're so sensitive, these test kits, is that they find remnants of viruses that you had before. So if you ever had a cold or anything like that, those parts of the DNA and RNA, they break up. And so this test was so sensitive, it was finding bits and pieces of this and giving you a positive result. And so that peak there is what happened. That's been all disproven now down to faulty test kits. So why the censorship from Google, Facebook, etc.? Why the lockdowns in Victoria? Victoria, Australia is the most locked down place in the world at the moment. And I checked the numbers, 55 dead. Yet the bill that they've got coming will cripple that country for generations. So you've got to take things in perspective. You've got 55 people died, and the last one, I think, there was a couple on the weekend, but the one before that was a 90-year-old man with a whole bunch of things wrong. Sorry to say, you've got to do the numbers and find out why, instead of the media telling you what to think. You've got to think about Victoria. Why are they locking it down so hard? You can't even cross the border. You can't do anything. Can't go out. You're fined up to $5,000 for going out of your home. They've been locked down now for 12 weeks. What's that going to do to your head? You're thinking. All sorts of health issues are coming. Now this is interesting. I did have a video on this one. This Professor Zuboff from Harvard, she's coined this term and she's actually written a book on it. It's quite interesting, about surveillance capitalism. So the video shows that every single thing you do online and on the street with the cameras and all the rest of it, it's just like TV. They know what you're doing. They can see what you're doing. They can sell you things. They start to shape everything for you through their algorithms. Now you need to, it's actually on YouTube, watch it. It's a bit of an eye-opener. And it's written by many, many people, her, you know, basing it on information she's got. The other one you should watch is The Social Dilemma. It's part drama, part doco. Now, the technicians, software engineers, people that worked at Google, Facebook, all the rest of it are interviewed, and it's astounding what they talk to you about, how Facebook and Google in particular are shaping the way we think. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a reality, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Now, if you want to think about huge, Google, it's the largest company in the world, right? But what do? They crunch data. All right. Now, all the searches I tried to do on them, I was redirected to other sites to say how they're becoming global warming friendly. Why? These things, there's hundreds of thousands and millions of servers crunching your data every single nanosecond. They're called farms, and they're everywhere, and this is Google's business. They don't make oil, they don't make cars, they don't make cakes, nothing. This is what their business is. Now your data goes, let's look at Google for example. Your data goes into Google, and that can be your photos. You take a picture of here, it all goes up into their big servers. You go to a restaurant, you shop online, everything. Now that data is all crunched, and it goes through things called algorithms. Based on where you are and what you're doing, it'll shape things and send it to you. Like, you should eat at this restaurant, it's only around the corner, or you should buy this, or you should buy that. Another little video there, it's not going to work. So I had to research this and find information, and what they kept doing is putting me what's called the rabbit hole. Put him down the rabbit hole. Let him run around there for a while until he gets sick of it. Could not find the information I wanted. The last reports I found on Google were from 2016, how big they were. Now, Moore's law suggests that everything doubles in a certain given time. So their algorithms, their servers, everything. This is a seriously wealthy company that can have the best equipment to crunch data about you. Now, when I looked at Google, all I could see is they would redirect me to this thing saying, Google's working on a solar farm to reduce its carbon footprint. Why? Does anyone know why? Red got it the other night. Google has the largest electricity bill in the world. Right? Electricity bill in the world. They don't make cars or anything. They crunch data. So it's pretty serious. With all of that going on, they've got the best text, the best software people to write all of these algorithms. Ask Google to, or any of them, to prove or disprove their neutrality. They won't. They'll send you off to Snopes or fact checkers or everything like that. And I check with them, and who owns those companies? Fact checker is a Facebook, part of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, right? And when you check them, they're very checkered history. They went back as far as Nixon, right? How to get data, how to control data, how to do this. Snopes, they've got a lot of things there. But the thing I noticed was that when you're at uni or something like that, you read and then you paraphrased something. So it wasn't plagiarism, you didn't directly copy it. So you get discredited now for paraphrasing. Say, oh, that's not exactly what they said. So your site is got a big stamp on it. So there's some questions to ask. Now, the biggest media consortium in history is now these guys. They're all working together because you get similar censorship on your posts. It's all a big money-making machine now. Some terminology they use, do you really want to post that? You should think twice about it. That's a warning that comes up, because they're checking the words as you're typing them in. Twitter is 6 times faster than any other social medium. 6 times faster. And their algorithms can check everything you're doing while you type it and say, do you really want to post that? We take action to protect the community. Really? Are they the government now? I thought the government does stuff like that. I didn't think publishers would do things like that. Post misleading information. Aware of your activities. When someone actually showed up at this reporter's home. Fact checker info panels, to its search engine. You know, they put these panels on there. I have one coming up. Warning labels on 98 million posts per quarter. Facebook, deemed to be misinformation. They said my vitamin D posts were misinformation back in February. Now it's allowed. Or you're redirected to an article from World Health, some statistics there that are a couple of years old. Any opposing view, don't go there. Big disclaimer. So to get you to not post, it's like you're in the schoolyard. Don't post that, otherwise we'll block you for 24 hours. So you get blocked. Then up to 2 weeks, up to a month, until they block you totally, to get you to conform to the way they want you to think. Now, Sergey Brin is the co-founder of Google. In 2016, he was very upset about an election, and he said he will change the algorithm for better governance and decision making. That's on video. Now, there's a guy in a powerful organization, Google, shaping the way you think and shaping the way people think. Okay, Google, largest electricity in the world, Bill. Now, these companies, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, their market value is 4.8 trillion. 4.8 trillion. And it's rising. Amazon doubled their share price in 6 months this year. Doubled. So their money's going to be astronomical. However, again, give me control of the nation's money and I care not who makes its laws. Global governments are bankrupt. However, these guys have got nearly 5 trillion in the bank to spend. Governments are broke. Now, these are the things I get. If I use a VPN, anyone know what a VPN is? Right. When I use a VPN to buy lotto tickets in Australia, it says you're not who you should be, verify who you are. And then they work out where I am, and there's my IP address, and my date and time, everything there. They do that because they want to know where I am so that they can sell me something. If I'm in Canada, they'll give me Canadian restaurants and things around there. But it was only to buy lotto tickets every week, and I get this. They block my emails, until I verify who I am. Scary. This is what you get. Privacy warnings. Don't go there. At your own risk. This is only a news site in Australia, but they don't like that news site. False information checked by independent fact checkers. Really? Who's checking the fact checkers? So they block these things. They blocked them. And there it is. There's the proof. Now, how are we going? All right. This is an interesting lady. Who knows who that is? Yeah, not one of them. The scientist. This is her. Yeah. Her and her other counterpart, who's now dead, she was working on this virus. It was called the CX45. These are in her notes, and it's all available, and the Americans have got hold of her now, and they're supporting her and protecting her because they know what happened. So it was called CX45 and then ZXC21. She was working on this because she's in a class 4, level 4 lab in Wuhan. There's only a few of these labs around the world. It's for dangerous and exotic agents which pose a high individual risk of life-threatening disease. So they get these and they work on them because they don't want another country or a terrorist country getting hold of these things and tweaking them, and they don't have a cure for it. She's become a whistleblower. She took everything on her USB stick. How she did it, I don't know. Went off to Hong Kong. Hong Kong fell. The Chinese clamped it down. Remember the protests in the street? That's all locked down. She freaked out, and a group called OWL got her out. Now, our foundation got her to the US. She went on a media tour to cover her butt because she didn't want to die like the guy she worked with in China. All her research now is out there. She's trying to protect herself. So put it out there, publish it. Do speaking on TV. If she disappears, then there'll be a few fingers being pointed. Now, Facebook, this is up for an hour or something, and then Facebook just shut her down. They said it hadn't been peer reviewed. Well, this lady doesn't have too many peers. Like, she is it. And they shut her down. Right? There'll be more about that later on. Australia, here's the doctor, Professor Brody. Now, he cured peptic ulcers in 1987. He was canned by the medical industry because they kept selling drugs. Right? He fixed it. A couple of his team went on to get the Science Prize, Nobel Prize. He saved billions of dollars off the health bill around the world and saved thousands of lives. Interesting, these guys, they invent something and then they put a drug next to it and then they patent it as a package. So I found this is the cure, patent it, and then you've got a patent for 25 years, money coming in. He's got 150 different patents on all sorts of drugs, all sorts of cures. Now, his combination is FDA approved, Drug Administration approved, and the Therapeutic Goods Association approved. His cure, zinc, and it's actually a very strong antibiotic. Positive results, and of course, good old vitamin D, which is a hormone actually. Now, they shut him down. They said, any doctor prescribing this, any pharmaceutical selling this, you will be fined. Seriously. And this guy has all these credentials. It's just remarkable. Now, Victoria's been locked down for 13 weeks now. Why can't they use this? It just doesn't make sense. Shut him down. Okay, this is Vernon Coleman from the UK, the one that was locked in his house. Written over 100 books. He had a website up for 25 years. He's a general practitioner and a professor of natural healing. His history is very good because he first said AIDS is not going to affect us all. You know, it was a bit radical at the time. He opposed mad cow disease in England, which, I don't know if you remember, decimated the cattle industry in England, just destroyed it. That was a whole industry with money coming in, jobs, all that sort of stuff. They just ripped into it. Now, he opposed the avian flu. Who said there'd be 150 million people dying? That didn't happen. Swine flu. All those people dying didn't happen. But the cost of all the drugs they bought, all those vaccines that were made ahead of time, got thrown away. Swine flu, no one talks about it. It was no more lethal than the ordinary flu. Now, because he put all this up over 25 years, they shut him down. Vilified, threatened his website. He doesn't charge any money, he doesn't get sponsors at all. So there's 3 leading people that got shut down. H1N1, who remembers that? Oh, we're all going to die, up to 34 million. That didn't happen. The funny thing there was, check it out on the CDC in 2009, they stopped counting numbers because no one was dying. But they kept rehashing that algorithm that kept the numbers running. Now the H1N1 is everyone that gets a flu shot every year. You'll find that that's part of it. So that pandemic that was going to happen has now been downgraded to a seasonal flu. But they had us believe at that time we're all going to die. So they're your flu shots that you get. There was no epidemic at all. Now I checked some of the figures, so everything kept leading back to John Hopkins. Where are they going? They were the ones with the numbers. Check their site. Major source that CDC and WHO derive all the information from, all the numbers coming from them. Now they've revised all the numbers down from the millions to 200,000 to 20,000 and all the rest of it, because it depends on how you look at the data. I've asked them many times, because they have a separate research area there, can you give me a breakdown on the deaths? Because people die from 56 other things before they get COVID. No, they won't give the data. It'll come out eventually when all the smoke and mirrors are finished. Now, let's have a look at the law. Laws are being changed while COVID's happening. That's a reality. Now, making a will in absentia, like normally in my office you come in, 2 legal staff there, we all sit together with the same pen. In some countries now, they don't do that because there's no travelling. You're locked in your home, but you still need to get your affairs in order. So those laws are changing. Last 6 times I've been to court, the executor that was nominated in the will didn't have to turn up because they can't fly into Thailand. So a power of attorney was good enough for the judge. But he's set a precedent now with me, because that means other people can give me a power of attorney and don't have to turn up. So I find that part interesting for me. The jury system around the world, all your peers sitting there, the cost of locking them up in hotels and food and sitting them in court, and the plaintiff and the defendant fighting it all out with all that takes time and money. They're now questioning the jury system, whether it's necessary. That's a rewrite of English law for sure, because that's where it all comes from. Emergency bills, great stuff. When you've got this pandemic happening, let's rush a few laws in. Now, in March, when things were peaking in England, there was a 358-page bill, an emergency bill, rammed through. No dissent, no discussion, no nothing. But it gave police, immigration, hospitals new powers. You don't have to get a second certificate for cremation, so anyone could just be burnt and no one cares about it anymore. Hospitals get all sorts of powers. Public meetings and demonstrations banned. Elections in 21 for May or may not happen. Now, restrictions of use and disclosure of information. Oh, that sounds like censorship to me. These are the new ones coming in. All arrangements for the inoculation or immunisation of persons against any disease. That says mandatory. That's law now. Also, it's law that you have to download this app and put it on your phone or something like that, and you will be traced. Or you don't go into the bar, you don't go into the sports club, you don't go into the supermarket. You will be traced. This is England. So follow the money. Who wins? I often said to Jep, if you've got if you've got $1 billion and I've got 100 million, if the system crashes down to the billionaire having 100 million and you're well and truly in the dust because you only had 100 million, you'll lose everything. You'll be totally bankrupt. But that person will still have 100 million to go and buy everything up. You can see that happening. The banks are supposed to get 5% for doing the small loans for businesses, but NPLs mean non-performing loans. In Thailand, they're just through the roof. mortgages, cars, motorbikes. They all got that 1,000 baht deposit motorbike. They can't pay for it. There's no jobs. There's no money. Now in America, that's interesting. It took 200 years in America, 200 years to run up a $4.5 trillion debt. Right? 200 years. But in the month of July this year, they ran up 4.5 trillion in 1 month. And it's not over yet. It hasn't finished. There's a long way to go. Okay, the dreaded tax man. Count on it. Everything. If you've got some money left, GST, VAT, everything you touch, it's going to go up. Forget socialism and capitalism, it's all being arranged. Interesting, this is not financial advice, but Warren Buffett bought Barrick Gold. He's never been a gold bug, never. He hated gold, so it's a useless investment. There you go, Buffett's now owner of gold and a mine. Percentage of my savings is in gold as well. You'll see some movement there. Real estate buyers. Oh, it's a buyer's market. I've got a few condos to sell. They ring up and say, oh, what's the lowest price you can accept? And you tell them, and then they say, oh, I was thinking more like half that. Give them away. There's plenty around. Now the losers, unfortunately, low-income families with or without debt. If you've got a job, like I saw a documentary yesterday from Australia called Four Corners. They went around to all of the states, and I didn't realise how bad this thing was. When you shut something down, you got to think. They went down to the fruit growers area, the trees, the orchards, and things like that. They can't get any people. Backpackers aren't allowed in to pick the fruit. They had something like 80,000 backpackers coming in to pick fruit. It's rotting on the tree. Nothing can be done. That's a whole industry, boom, gone. And just fruit growers. Everything else, restaurants, you name it, all going down the chute. You can see it here in Pattaya. So low-income families are going to get really hit. You'll see this in Thailand. A lot of them have gone back up north to the farms or somewhere else where they can grow and eat. And the princess came out the other day and said, self-sufficiency, same as what King 9 said. You're going to have to go back to it. Oh, that's a good one. If you watch that Social Dilemma, you'll see statistics there that are very scary. 9 to 15-year-old girls are watching this app and they take pictures, and if they're not liked by their friends or tagged or popular or something like that, they take it again and again and again until they get some likes going up. Right? Unfortunately, the suicide rate for 9 to 15-year-old girls has gone up 220%. Like, that's scary. So the kids are going to suffer with this because they don't know what these things are for. They don't know social distancing, stuff like that. Banks, you're heading towards 0 interest rates. That means they'll charge you to put your money in the bank. It's happened with some banks already. Airlines, really, how can you make a profit when half the plane's full? You know, they're running on a margin already. Small, medium enterprises. Just take a look around Pattaya. This is happening all over the world. Closed, 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 closed. It's depressing. The whole soul has gone out of this place. They're going to try and open up Phuket next week. 120 Chinese coming in, I think. It only takes one, and then we're back to lockdown again. War and dividing people. That's the strategy of war. You know, you divide people. You get them in different camps, which is happening. Antifa, BLM, all that sort of thing. Left and right politics. It's not just in America. It's happening in Australia as well. People are leaving. Politicians are saying, "I've had enough. I'm not going to do this." Too much. I love this shot. This is in Bangkok. It's not my shot, but I just loved it. It just said everything. Here's the guy with his noodle stall on the railway track. no customers, no trains. That's about sums it up, I think. You can't play the Alan Jones one. That's pretty good. What's happening around the world, though, is litigation. In Australia now, they're using this industrial manslaughter law to charge the government for neglect of duty, because all the people they lock down that are all having health issues or all suicided or all anything, they are actually accountable. Politicians for the first time are not exempt from this law because they brought it in. All right, so you can expect huge litigation all around the world. Yeah, we won't get into that. BLM march. Who allowed 10,000 people on the street when there was a lockdown in Australia? They were scared. They have to give them a license, otherwise they would have trashed the whole downtown of Melbourne. Now, this is good. In Pennsylvania, a federal judge has ruled that the lockdown is unconstitutional. No matter what's happening in the street, no matter what they say, no emergency cancels the Constitution. You thank your founding fathers for that one, having enough foresight to put things like that in, because they knew they would pull these tricks. You can't be wiped out off the board by lockdowns for any reason. So this is going ahead, and the great thing about this is it'll be done by jury. That means people have to sit there, and the lawyers have to explain and get explanations as to why this happened and who was responsible. Then that will become public knowledge, but that will go on for a long time, that one. But it's happened, and these litigations will happen all over the world. So your constitution does work, thank God. Now, conclusion, we're in the first phase of Corona. Maybe we're still freaking out that we're all going to die, but the numbers don't suggest that. Maybe there's a second wave, but the curve is showing that people just aren't dying from it. So they've changed the narrative from you're going to die to you're going to get infected. You watch all the news now, these particular words have been changed. You're not dying, you'll be infected. So still freak out. The second phase is happening now. It's definitely financial. When you drill down a bit, you see what's happening in Thailand. That's happening all across the world. But in the poorer countries, it's going to get worse. They were already poor. They didn't have rice, food, water, hygiene, medicine. That's just going to go totally south. Phase 3. This is probably going to kill more people than COVID. People locked in the house for 12 weeks or longer. In Victoria, Australia, it's probably going to be 16 weeks locked in. Something happens to your head, your brain, your thinking. You'll never be the same. You're scared about things. You're doing this, doing that, right? So that phase is going to be totally expensive. Very, very expensive. And how you're going to get treatment if you're 70 or something, I don't know. They'll have to work that one out. Now, this might all not happen if everyone in the world agrees to not call in the debt. They might all sit around the table and say, oh, you owe us 50 billion, we owe you 75, let's all just shrink this down. I doubt that's going to happen. But if they wanted to reset everything, forgive all the bills, if not, be prepared to pay higher taxes, VAT, poverty will increase, division between poor and rich will get unbelievable. Like in Thailand now, it's already, what, 2 or 3% own most. That'll just widen now. Huge litigations, as we said, expect all that. More conflict with China, because now we have an excuse. They invented the Wuhan virus and they let it out and caused the world to crash. RNA vaccines, please read as much as you can on this, because you don't rush into the stuff. This has never been done in the history of the world. Play with the stuff of life. I'm all for vaccines, but I'm all for the vaccines that have the antibodies, like your flu shots. all right, because they're antibodies and increase your immune system. But a vaccine for RNA, mate, you don't know what it's going to do. Now, I'm nearly finished. The mosquito debate has been going for 8 years now. They can eradicate every mosquito on Earth through their DNA, RNA manipulation. Mosquitoes carry lots of diseases and kill millions and millions and millions of people every year. But they won't, because they're still debating it. So why would you introduce an RNA vaccine into the human population when you've done 3 or 4 months of testing? It's mind-boggling. Plus, the Americans passed the law, the FDA and the Americans passed this law saying these manufacturers of vaccines, they can't be prosecuted. They can't. They can make these things, they can get them on the market, they can make billions, and if it goes wrong, tough. Now, they'll get better. Google, Facebook, all that will get better because no one can tell them what to do. There was a Senate inquiry where they all fronted up there, and they more or less said, we can do whatever we want. Because the government doesn't have the money to chase this $5 trillion consortium here. Anyway, good luck. Questions?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on a very comprehensive talk.
There's more with the videos that has a bigger impact, because it's not just my opinion. Yeah.
It must have took a lot of work on your part to attain all those figures.
Well, in between my singing and dancing and painting and cooking and discussions with Ray on how my art is progressing, yes.
Yeah, I think with all these figures and the facts that Benjamin Disraeli's quotation is very, very apt. And that was, there are lies, there are damned lies, and then there are statistics, which says it all.
Is this on? Yeah. One of the clips, if you get to look at it online, click it on and it will show you how to manipulate data. It's only about two minutes, and you just think, oh, it's that easy. It's that easy. So you're right.
Well done on the presentation. Interesting point about the hospital, especially about the Nightingale Hospital in London.
Yeah.
But my question is about the financial bit, and I share your view because I've personally seen interest rates in savings accounts drop. But if they become negative interest rates, i.e. costing you money, people will withdraw because they're trying to encourage you to spend to put money in the system. But the dilemma there is that governments for the last 20 years have tried to make us more responsible adults and save for pensions. So if people are spending, they run the risk of people running out of money when they're in their 70s, 80s or 90s, etc. So that is a real tough dilemma if it does become negative interest rates. But it has been seen, or I think it's already in Japan, they already have that in place.
Watch the Four Corners special on the internet, and they talk about something I totally forgot about. When you work in Australia, you pay into superannuation every month with your pay. That scheme was to look after you for when you're old. Now with the massive layoffs and no people working, there's no one paying into that system. It's collapsing. So what they promised you may not be there.
Do you think the big pharma's involved in this?
Well, at the beginning, I put there that there's opportunity. And so governments took opportunity to pass bills. Pharmaceuticals took opportunity to make vaccines. Banks are taking opportunities. Buyers of property, everyone's taking an opportunity. So I don't think there's a planned thing from the beginning. At first I thought it was. But then when it started to unravel and have a look around, it's just that it happened. The media made money. They made an opportunity to make a lot of money from it. Google, Amazon, for example, they've changed the way you think. You don't have to go to the shop anymore. You just dial it up and it comes. So you're not going to go to the supermarket every week now. You're just going to get it delivered. They're changing the way we were.
I think what you've just said maybe already addresses what I was going to say. You've given us a very comprehensive presentation covering a lot of things, and at first I thought that you were heading towards maybe one of the conspiracy theories where there is a conspiracy between certain actors to end up in this situation. But I don't think you are you? You're talking more about a perfect storm where this is happening here, something else is happening there, and when these things are happening, there are various individuals or organisations that see an opportunity. Is that really what? It's not one conspiracy.
No. The reason I went through the last lot of viruses that we've went through, and they tried to get us to say we're all going to die, all that sort of thing. It didn't work, and I think the timing is important here. The social media, those companies now, they control everything. So what was coming out before, I had to look at TV to find the AIDS thing, but now it's on your phone. It's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it, right? The timing is perfect storm, as you said, for everything. There'll be a total reset of things. The way we used to do things, the way we're doing them, like this, right? This is second nature now. I hate the thing, but I can't go in to anywhere without it. So your thinking is now being policed on everything you do, your actions. And if you don't do them, you'll probably have a fight out the front. Someone says, "You don't have a mask on." Oh, yes, I do. You know, but conspiracy, no. Opportunity, yes.
Hi. I look on the internet, it's actually quite hidden, a lot of the statistics. I mean, for instance, you try and find out how many people died of the flu compared with COVID. It's very difficult to find that in any country. And there's also a lot of sort of misinformation, like if I look at how many people died in England of COVID, I think it's per million is 600, which is pretty much the same as America, but they would always say America, oh, so many people died and everything, but and you go to China, you know, one person per million has died, you know. So we're really, in the UK, we're quite high up on the list. The other question, of course, is it depends who you know has died of COVID or got it or whatever. And of course, our Prime Minister almost died of it, Boris Johnson. So I suppose on the other end of the scale, it's quite a serious disease. Yeah.
No, I would say it's no. The facts and figures now are coming out, like they're rewriting the book. The thing with COVID is it's an infection. Now, if you die from some underlying cause. They know all that now. There's been autopsies in Germany and Spain, France, Italy. Now, what the numbers, okay, what gets me about the numbers is there's a world clock there ticking over of people dying, right? CDC and World Health and all the rest of it say it takes at least 3 months to get the data in. So how could world clock be going like this? Dead, 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 dead. It's just mind-boggling what they've done. The statistics, as Les said, who do you believe? They've changed dramatically since last year when things started happening in China. So we're being fed all this from the media, so it depends where you're getting your news from. Ray introduced me to a professor who's right on the ball with all the numbers and things like that. So these people at the front line, they can tell you what's happening and how it's changed and stuff like that. But the media, these guys, they'll shut you down if you don't think the right way. Like, they want us to believe we're all going to die. But this has happened 10 times before. But this particular time, the timing is right. You have the medium to do it. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all these things, it's instant now. And then all you do is go, oh, so-and-so would be interested in that, boom, and you send it to them. No one's checking. The figures from CDC and World Health, you go onto the website, they're like 2016. So they're giving you figures on the old flu, but there's nothing on the new flu because it takes time to verify the data. So putting the world clock up there going like that, it's total nonsense. I think, what's happening? This man over there, he's had his hand up.
Make a comment about, you were implying that a lot of these previous pandemics were overblown. And you made the comment about less than 200 mad cow deaths have occurred. Well, 25 years ago, I thought mad cow was a really big deal. I mean, on the news and everything, scared the hell out of me. Well, 15 years ago, I gave blood in a place in the US. They had this comprehensive questionnaire. After I gave blood, they told me they weren't going to use my blood and I was banned from giving blood. And I was living in Thailand at the time. And I don't have AIDS. I mean, like, what's the deal? They said, well, you spent too much time in England in the early 70s. So you potentially have the harbinger of mad cow disease in your blood. So I'm banned from giving blood in the US. Several years ago, a friend of mine, a British guy living in Germany, married, etc., came down with mad cow disease. And he died 2 years ago. And it's an awful way to die. Your brain dissolves. And he was case number 262. That's how many people, maybe more after that, but 262 people died of mad cow disease. And it scared the fuck out of me, and I'm banned from giving blood. Not that it was overblown.
Yeah, but this figure was from, I think, 2009. The figure they had, you know. But that was Jacob's something or other disease, Jacob's something or other, yeah, with the brain, yeah. What's happened to Mr. Ray? You got your hand up?
You've already had one.
I answered it. I owe you a beer.
This is a
Soon.
new question. Yeah. Stand up.
I've got to stand up. All right, standing up, right.
You do? Put your
Right.
shoes on,
Okay.
social distancing.
Shoes on. No, there still isn't regulation about that.
I've already touched.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Now, guys, just a word about statistics. Yeah? Here. Right. Can you hear me now? Yes. Right. Okay. Am I doing all right? Yes. Yes? Hear me? Right. Word about statistics. Now, in the UK, you still can get accurate statistics. NHS England publishes hospital deaths, daily hospital deaths. Yeah. Now, if you look at those, there are very, very few people dying with or from COVID in hospitals in England. Yeah, each month roughly 50,000 people die. Now the percentage of those who had COVID, died from COVID or with COVID is roughly 1.4, 1.5%. It's a very, very small number. Now that's why you now have the narrative in British newspapers, you don't get death rates anymore, you get number of cases. Now, all right, a lot of people have COVID, but if they're healthy, and they're not going to hospital, and they're not going to die shortly, what does it matter? And these numbers of cases, they're presented as a raw figure. They're not presented as a percentage or a ratio. So the more testing you do, the more positives you come out with. So what's the government do? It does a lot more testing, publishes figures, loads of people now being tested positive for COVID, we've got to lock them down. But the only reason a lot more people are testing positive is a lot more tests are being carried out. It's just a fraud. Yeah, do not believe this rubbish. COVID is number 23 or 24 on the list of diseases. There are 23 other diseases where more people are dying, including flu and pneumonia. And just another word on statistics, because this is my subject area. We all know this quote about lies, down lies, and statistics. But really the problem is most people are innumerate. They don't look at statistics. They don't think this number of COVID deaths, but every year in the UK, 600,000 people die. People die. Government can't stop people from dying. Look at the figures. Yeah?
Sorry, very interesting.
All right, one more question, because it's nearly 12 o'clock.
One more question.
Okay, it's not a question. Would whoever's phone is still switched on and pinging all the time close the thing up, because it's driving me and possibly everyone else insane? Turn your phone off. If you put it on silent, don't let it ping and annoy everyone all the way through the meeting.
Well, I guess it's mainly on the point of statistics, which I guess I'll refer to Tom and his mad cow disease. I have been refused permission to take to give blood for that same reason. Only in my case, it was you've got a British passport. We're not taking blood from Brits because you've got mad cow disease. The other thing I wanted to ask maybe the statistician here, what they're also publishing now, I think, are excess deaths. Okay, how does that fit in? Because what they're saying is, okay, over on a rolling average, 5 years, we are now seeing excess deaths over and what they're implying is those excess deaths are due to COVID. I'm just saying that's another statistic that's been.
You just change the narrative from deaths to infections to excess deaths. They will continue to do this to keep the momentum there, because they haven't finished bringing all the changes in. They're coming. So you change the narrative, you keep people, because we already have got it up here for the first 4 or 5 months. We're all going to die, we're all got this, wash your hands, wear a mask, do this. Then the next one is the next narrative, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not going to change the narrative, I'm going to end the narrative now. Huge round of applause for an incredibly thorough, diligent talk. Really, in a sense, a benchmark for how to give a talk. Considering the length it went, I'm actually glad that the videos didn't work. So I think that actually worked out for the best. So let's come over here. Of course, we have a very small token of our appreciation for the deep work and thorough work you did. Really good, really, thank you. Oh, we should do fist bumps soon. Okay, really, thank you, Kelvin, that was great. Do we have an actual